If you're curious on why I'm not having the interest of doing a marathon of Big City Greens, even though I've been rewatching the episodes multiple times whenever I'm in a Big City Greens mood, is because the episodes, while entertaining, is still mostly cliched, and me considering on doing reviews off of those episodes would be less interesting in comparison to reviewing other media that has better directions. I'm not saying that the directions that Big City Greens took is bad. It's just, I've seen all of it before, and yet at the same time, it just kind of feels like it's just a way to have an episode be an episode, but at the same time, it didn't give me the interest into making a review out of those episodes. But there was one episode that got me interested into doing a review out of ever since I've watched it when it premiered earlier this year. Okay, granted, I didn't watch it when it was premiering, but at the same time, I did remember the ending of the episode after watching the clip of it. The episode is The Family Tree, where Bill and the family are going to Big City to go to the farmer's market before traffic gets in the way. But Tilly isn't really interested into going along, since that she is so invested into this tree that was in front of their old home. Bill tries to have the rest of the family to get Tilly down, but to no avail. Because when they get inside the tree, they're so invested to the point that Cricket enjoys the feel of it, while Nancy enjoys the apples, and Alice gets nostalgia, mainly from her past when it comes to her husband. And this leads to Bill going up there to understand what the tree is really about and enjoying the view that really eases his stress. The view is the sun rising over the horizon that is so beautiful that the thumbnail of this review is the ending of the episode. And I picked that because it was so gorgeous that it's just difficult to not overlook it. So, with the episode being plain and simple, at the same time, it does show onto why Big City Greens is still continuing, especially with a 5th season in the future. This episode really showcases the normalcy of the Greens family, considering that most of the time they're dysfunctional. But since that the 4th season does showcase them going into Big City after moving back there, but also coming back to the country, this really gave you so much about them that they have a soft side, which they did showcase in the past, but in a way where they come together in a tree that they didn't think made it all possible. With Tilly being the reason that the family didn't go to Big City, honestly, it kind of sums up her character a lot more onto why that she ended up becoming the heart and soul of this episode. If any other character would be in that tree and find something to enjoy, they would probably do it in their own way for the sake of being mostly selfish. And let's be totally real. The closest that isn't selfish is Bill, since that he does do selfish things in this show. But when it comes to the other characters, Nancy, while being a nice mother, at the same time can still go a little over the top when it comes to her reckless behavior. So seeing Tilly in this by having the family come together, even though it wasn't really intentional, she just wants her family to see what the tree is in the inside. I'm just saying, whenever I look at these characters, mainly from this season alone, they still do over-the-top antics. And I'm pretty sure that this episode is an indicator that they do have a soft spot when they cool down. And it may be the case if Tilly would have gone somewhere else to find a tree to her own liking, but I'm pretty sure that the storyline wouldn't even work when it comes to the development of the characters and how they feel if a random tree will put them back together, because this tree in front of the old house really indicates that they can come together, and they haven't realized it after they moved out of the country. Well, aside from Nancy. If you want to know what makes this episode show my appreciation a lot more, is because on the 4th of July of this year, my family took down the tree that was in the front yard. Granted, though that tree didn't have as much as memories as the tree in this episode, but I still miss it, considering it was literally in front of my window. So with that being said, it kind of gave me memories of the moon or the sun reflecting over those leaves in front of my window, to the point that I'm never going to have that again. But at the same time, there were different reasons onto why that tree needed to be cut down. And it was into 3 branches of some sorts that had leaves that they had to cut down one by one. That tree wasn't strong enough to lift anyone else's weight, especially since that it doesn't grow apples. But at the same time, it made me understand the nature of what this episode is trying to do when it came to the family coming together. If the tree from the front yard in front of my window never got cut down, then I wouldn't see this episode better. So since that it did, it made me understand the intentions of this episode entirely. Granted, I would still see the episode good without the tree being cut down, but at the end of the day, you learn something new every day. The only complaint that I have with this episode is not Bill's stress, but how it's executed. Like, with this episode being 11 minutes long, and with him being extremely worried that traffic would be a problem to him, isn't it honestly weird that with this short amount of time and the time that he heads to Big City, he would probably still be in traffic? So it kind of makes me to believe that even if he did leave with the family, he would probably be still in a predicament on being in traffic regardless. And with his app that is turning to dark red to increase his stress, honestly, if this episode did went on longer, it would have been delaying the inevitable and just dragging out the story a little too long. But at the same time, with this being 11 minutes long, it's no debate if Bill will make it to Big City in time. So with him cutting down the tree with his keys, he probably never used a chainsaw before, and it's mainly the fact that he wants to protect the trees in order to get something out of the trees, mainly fruits and whatnot. It doesn't change the fact that they're literally trying a little too goofy and too juvenile to make him stressed out. Because sometimes when Bill isn't stressed, he is mostly good-hearted, and sometimes immoral when it comes to some episodes, mainly his video game addiction episode. I'm just saying, sometimes when a show continues, they try to find different ways to make characters go through these scenarios, but whenever I look at Bill in this, I try to understand his stress, but at the same time, it's done in a juvenile way that it's just difficult for me to take his relatability seriously in comparison to other episodes while his relatability makes sense. But it's just one criticism of this episode that doesn't really affect the episode itself. I actually found this episode really good, and more of a reason on why Big City Greens still continues even to this day, especially with the movie that has been released back in June of this year. I had to skip it to put less pressure on me to what I've been through last summer, but I am planning on reviewing it when I get the chance in the following year. I have mixed opinions towards it, and I do have to rewatch it in order to get a different perspective. But once that happens, it could happen way earlier in 2025 than later, but we'll just see what happens. I'm giving Family Tree a 9 out of 10.